Joining us is Shahid Buttar. He is running against Nancy Pelosi to replace one of our least and most, actually not least, one of our most destructive members of national politics with somebody who has a serious proactive vision for a serious form of social democracy, but also a profound commitment to our civil liberties and the best of our constitutional tradition, which we as the left need to embrace for ethical and strategic reasons. Shahid, thanks for doing this. Thanks for joining us from the Bay.
Great to be with you, Michael. Thanks for having me on.
How are you, man?
Hanging in, as well as can be expected under the circumstances. I feel very privileged and fortunate myself. I had a chance to volunteer recently with the food bank, and I saw people who were really dealing with challenges, folks who particularly, I was struck by the emergence of folks who seem to be undocumented, who were fearful of getting services from other places, and just the opportunity for people just to pick up a bag of groceries and not have to share an ID, not have to go through some means testing. It really demonstrated to me the best of our country, seeing our neighbors coming together to support each other. And I'm inspired by that, despite the grimness of this moment.
Absolutely. And just give us a little update on the state of your race with Nancy Pelosi so people kind of know where that's at. Just give us a little bit of an update on that.
Yeah. So earlier this month, about 3 weeks ago, we had our primary in California. It's a jungle primary. So I was among the winners of the jungle primary, and I'll have the opportunity to be Nancy Pelosi's general election challenger. I'm the first general election challenger she will have ever faced from within the Democratic Party. My job and the aim of our thousands of supporters is to make sure that it's the last one she faces, to end her career and make sure that San Francisco gets a new voice in Congress to represent our city's values in all the different ways that unfortunately she has declined or refused or been unwilling to do so over the last 20 years.
So let's talk about, we'll get at the end to this bailout package, which we've talked a lot about on this show. And I think it actually, when we connect the civil liberties question properly, and we look at it not just as a question of government surveillance or private surveillance, we see it as a hybrid. We can actually, I think, kind of connect just the ultra concentration of, let's call it, platform capitalism with the collapse of civil liberties. And I think that's ultimately where we need to go in terms of our diagnosis and response. But let's start really concretely. About a week ago, there was a bunch of reporting in various outlets, including Politico and Vox, and some actually strong response. As always, I always have the credits due where credits due principle. Mike Lee and Justin Amash with the most visceral opposition to a DOJ essentially it read to me like, insofar as I could read it, there wasn't terribly much reporting on it, but that the DOJ was requesting that Congress allow for judges to hold people in indefinite detention during times of quote unquote emergency. Can you talk about what you know about that, why that's so extraordinarily dangerous, and how that fits?
Thank you for raising it. And I just want to appreciate you focusing on this, because it's been, frankly, not the object of nearly enough discussion and conversation over the week since these reports emerged. And frankly, what's happening on the Hill in response to the proposal remains very clouded. There hasn't been a lot of reporting. It seems to be happening through back channels, but this is a request to do exactly that. The Justice Department, under Attorney General Barr, this criminal president's Justice Department wants effectively to suspend the writ of habeas corpus. And they're inviting Congress to authorize the chief judges of district courts to basically overlook constitutional protections. And among the settings in which the Justice Department described its request being applicable was particularly the pre-arrest phase. And that's incredibly disturbing, alarming inclusion in a set of authorities in a country that claims to be a free republic. I've warned about erosions to civil liberties for a long time, for over a decade. And it was one thing under the Obama administration to be saying that the surveillance apparatus could be used to facilitate restrictions on dissent and nailing the coffin of our democracy. It's an entirely different thing when we're talking not just about surveillance powers, but we're talking about detention authorities, right, not at Guantanamo Bay, but within the United States. And when the person at the top is not someone who we might defer to as at least a thoughtful person with some grounding in rule of law norms. However, you and I both know that the Obama administration, ran frankly to the right on civil liberties issues and governed from the right in office. It's an entirely different calculus, however, with Trump in the White House. There's absolutely no reason to pretend that our liberties are safe when the executive branch is going to Congress without the press paying attention, asking for unconstitutional authorities that could be used in any conceivable way. There's a point to make here. We'll come back to this, I imagine, when you raise the bailout. But the relationship between the president and Congress is important to note here, because Congress has tried at different points, including this week, to limit the president's prerogatives, to impose oversight measures, to at least make gestures towards accountability. They've never worked. This president knows no constraint. He knows no law. He was recently threatening, in fact, promising to deny opportunities for the state of Michigan to get federal support because he didn't like the politics of the governor. That's the person we want to trust with a preventive detention authority? No, thank you very much. I live in a country that has a written constitution. It has basic procedural core protections for individual rights that are meant to protect our democracy in times of crisis. We cannot abandon those protections. We do so at great peril to ourselves and our republic.
Absolutely.
You just watched a Michael Brooks show video. Subscribe to get them all. Why wouldn't you? Don't be foolish. Click subscribe below and become a patron as well. Patreon.com/TMBS. Thanks, everybody.